All right, welcome to the Zone Live, Week 11 edition, guys. We made it through another regular season, almost, if we make it through Friday night. It's been a long season, but I kind of feel like we probably are similar to the football teams. You know, we hit a wall, we get tired, we get cranky. I know I do. I don't have to agree with that. But then now it's getting to be playoff time, and I think everybody's got that second win and ready to go. So this should be fun. I'm Jack Stallard, sports editor at the Longview News Journal. As always, to my left, Hayden Henry. To my right, Brandon Ogden, and we're going to talk a lot of football. I'll be up front with you right now. We're not going to get too deep into playoff scenarios because it's there's just too much going on. But I'll promise you this: pick up the newspaper Sunday morning, and you'll know everything you want to know about every playoff game involving East Texas teams. We're going to spend the day Saturday gathering that information, so we'll have that for you. Let's jump right in. We're going to start talking about our etvarsity.com game of the week, Harleton at Union Grove. Guys, this is my kind of game. You know, looking at stats, looking at some numbers, I think this ball game is going to be won on the line of scrimmage. And, you know, most football games you could say that, but I think truly if you look at this football game, they've got some offensive standouts. Both teams have the potential to run the ball well, can do some good things on offense. But I'm looking at defensive lines for these two teams. If you look at Harleton, you got two kids, Peyton Alexander and Noah Flores, with a combined 21 sacks. Now, obviously that depends on how much Union Grove decides to throw the football, if that comes into play. And then you look on the other side, Union Grove, Hayden Gray and Garrett Bowery combined for 110 tackles, 30 tackles for losses. I think this one's going to be won by the big guys up front. What do you think, Hayden?
Definitely so. And what stands out is that offensively, they each have a number of weapons as well, too. So once you get going up front, both sides have options.
Yeah, I think this should be a lot of fun. Brandon, you did the bulk of the work on this one. What'd you see? What do you see?
Well, it's going to be Union Grove. They've put up a lot of points this year, and over 40 a game in district. Where Harleton in district play and even a couple games before district, they haven't given up more than 12 points in a game for about 6 game stretch. So it's going to come down to a really, really good Harleton defense against a really good Union Grove offense. And Union Grove, their offense, I was looking, they have had 17 different ball carriers. Even big Garrett Bowery, I saw a clip last week, he ran in a touchdown. And so Union Grove's got so many weapons on offense, but, it all goes to their quarterback, Tristan Thompson. But it's going to be just, like I said in my preview, it's going to be a battle of a really good offense against a really good defense. But on the other side, Harleton's offense, they're pretty good too, running the ball, and Union Grove's got a pretty good defense as well.
Absolutely, and two of my favorite coaches in this one too involved. I don't know how many games we can say out there where one of the coaches is approaching 500 wins as a baseball coach. You look at Jackie Lloyd, just crunched the numbers on that. He's at 490 wins as a baseball coach. Led Harleton to the regional semifinals last year. Coach Roger Adams at Union Grove, when I first met him 29 years ago, he was an assistant baseball coach at Kilgore, so he's got a baseball background a little bit, but he's a football guy. He's done a great job at Union Grove. The Lions have a chance to win their first district championship since forever. Got a chance to go to the playoffs for the second time in a row after having a long streak of that. So this should just be a great, great football game. Should be a lot of fun. This one's going to be played at Union Grove at Glenn Johnson Stadium.
One of the thing about Harleton is, early on everybody was talking about Union Grove, Ore City, and Big Sandy. Harleton got kind of overlooked. Mm-hmm. Well, now that it's come down to the final game, they're playing for a district title against Union Grove. So Harleton's like, hey, don't forget about us. And 8-1, 4-0. There's no reason to forget about Harleton.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be a great game. Let's move on a little bit. Talk about some of the big schools and Hallsville at Longview to close the regular season out there, and the Lobos. Bless their hearts, they got some news this week. They're understaffed. Anyway, no. Go ahead and tell them the news. Hayden's already written about it a couple times. We had a story in the paper about it, but Longview's got some great news this week.
Yeah, I think the whole team definitely had a pep in the step with the release of JaMychal Hasty coming back for the first time this season. He practiced with the team on Monday. I just watched a little film. He was out there yesterday as well, so. Obviously he was a little gassed on Monday, having not played, but it's not like he's been sitting around eating cheeseburgers. He's in playing shape. Coach King was a little mum on exactly what his status will be Friday night. On Monday, he was practicing at slot receiver and a few carries out of the backfield. So, I've been getting questions all week. Will he play? Will he play? I think he definitely will play. I mean, why would they go through all this just to have him sit on the sideline? You know, it's one of those things where even just him being on the field is going to be a deterrent. You know, for the defense is taking away from the weapons they already got. Tylen Miller, you know, last week in Sulphur Springs, just a true smash mouth effort. Ran the ball 23 times for a season high, 189 yards. That was his sixth game over 100 yards. He's 26 away from breaking 1,000 on the season. Desmond Chumley passed 1,000 yards for the third time in his career last week. You know, another big game. He's added 8 touchdowns on the ground to add to that dynamic. You know, he's so smooth out of the play action. They had a 99-yard scoring drive. Ran the ball 8 times in a row. Miller. Next play, Chumley play action, 30 yards down the field to John Sorey. I mean, that's just kind of how they operate. It's kind of how both Hallsville and Longview operate. They're both running the ball 70% of the time. You know, like you said, big playoff implications on the line. Hallsville wins, they're in the playoffs. A Silver Springs win over Marshall puts the Wildcats in the playoffs, so they'll definitely be cheering for the Wildcats over Marshall. It's only the third time these two teams have met, you know, which is pretty crazy. I mean, there's, I think, probably, 15 miles between them. Longview's 2-0 in that. Some more fun facts. Coach King's 2 wins away from catching Doug Cox is becoming the all-time wins leader at Longview High School. They shored up at least a share of their 10th district title in 11 years under King. They've won 30 straight at home in district, which is pretty wild to me. Never lost on senior night. They got 28 seniors, and that's what I'm going to write about on for Friday. It's about, you know, there's key areas on the field where there's a lot of underclassmen doing their job, but there is a senior kind of there right next to him leading the way on both lines in the backfield, at wide receiver, and in the secondary. So look for that on Friday in the paper. You know, should be a good game. Hallsville coming in playing for a lot. We'll see. Longview's looking to close out a perfect run through district action. You know, one of the few playoff pairings that we already have shored up is round 2. Longview Lufkin next Friday night, 7:30 at Rose Stadium in Tyler. Gonna be wild. But
Yeah,
you know, like I said, the focus
one.
has been on Hallsville this week. They want to cap it. They want that goal ball all to themselves. They don't like sharing over there. So take care of business Friday night. Then it's Longview Lufkin round 2.
Yeah, this one should be a good one. I mean, Hallsville's got some talent. They've got some
definitely.
playmakers, and they're playing for a lot. And you know, Longview, I don't see Longview ever. I don't know the word slacking off, but just letting somebody sneak up on them because they've already clinched the playoff. Longview, like I said, they want that gold ball. They want to win this. And I'm curious, like everyone else, to see how they use Hasty. I mean, I don't expect him to play, you know, more than 10 or 15 plays maybe. But you know, like you said, if he's on the field, you have to account for him. You have to. Somebody's got to be taking care of him, or he will burn you quickly. So
I mean, he looked good Monday with the breaks. I mean, I kind of honestly forgot about the speed and his breaks, and it just takes another dynamic, you know, when he's on the field.
Should be a good one. Moving on, got several games here to talk about. Greenville at Pine Tree. Not exactly a big game on the schedule now. Both these teams are 1-5, but I don't think you can convince either one of these teams that it's not a big game. What do you think on this one, Brandon?
And for two teams that, you know, have struggled to win not only this season but in past seasons, this is big for, you know, they're both trying to build for the, you know, the future, and especially for Pine Tree, you know, they're finishing up their first year under new head coach David Collins. If they can get a second win here, you know, on Friday night, it would be real big to head into the offseason. They've got a real young defense, and then they'll have some key guys back on offense. They'll have their quarterback back and some other guys back. And this will just be a good step in the right direction. You know, 2 district wins. It's been, you know, about 5 or 6 years since they've won 2 district games. So, you know, it'd be a big one. And, you know, for Greenville, same thing. They entered this season with a 40-game losing streak. So if they can go 4-6 this year, you know, that'd be a win for them. So, you know, both teams, while there's no playoff spots on the line, both teams are playing for pride and playing for a win. And, you know, you can get 6th in district. It's, you know, it's not top 4, not playoffs, but it's better than getting, you know, any spot you can move up is always a win. So
yeah, absolutely. And you know, any sport you want to close out with a win. I mean, there's just a good feeling. You have to sit and wait a long time if the last memory you have is a loss. A couple of things to look for in this one, just some numbers, and you know, a long shot, but it could happen. Mason Hayes, just a super athlete for Pine Tree. You know, at one point he was on our list in rushing, passing, and receiving, you know, on our leaders list. Mason Hayes needs 240 yards to pass 1,000 in receiving. That's a pretty solid number receiving wise. And he's had a great season no matter what. But 240, that would take a heck of a game there. But you never know with the Pirates. And Quay Ward, he needs 118 yards to pass 1,000 rushing, and that's that benchmark you look for. So a couple good numbers there to look for and see what happens in that game. Some other games we've got on the schedule: Atlanta at Spring Hill. Again, two teams kind of in the heading opposite direction there. Atlanta, they're in the playoffs. Spring Hill, kind of the same situation as Pine Tree. You want to close out with a win. This one to me comes down to the quarterbacks. Atlanta's got Chase Musgrove. This kid's phenomenal. 1,592 yards passing, 18 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I think the only other quarterback out there that you'll see with those kind of numbers, touchdowns to interception ratio wise, is McLean Carter, our ETVarsity.com Offensive Player of the Week at Gilmer. I think he's got 21 touchdowns, 1 interception, but just, great passing numbers, doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and he also runs the ball well. Spring Hill, probably, their offense is led by Garrett Self, similar type player. Throws the ball well, 908 yards, 10 touchdowns passing. He's rushed for 442 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, quarterback-led teams there, and we'll see what happens in that. We'll see if the Panthers can close one out with a win. Another game on the schedule here to look for: Henderson at Kilgore. This one has always been special in my book. I started my career at Kilgore News Herald 29 years ago, and this is not a. Hayden's got a phone call here. This is not even an exaggeration. I remember when Henderson and Kilgore played. This will give you an idea how big a rivalry they are. You can see at the start of the season, you'll see cars painted up in Kilgore that say "Beat Henderson," and they don't usually play till the last game of the season. So that's the game. That's the game everybody wants to win over there, and it really means a lot in this one. You've got Henderson and Kilgore. Henderson's 4-0, playing for that district championship. A little bit of surprise there, I think, to some. Kilgore's in the playoffs, and I'm curious to see what that does for Kilgore as far as relaxing them and letting them just go out and play. What do you think on that one, Hayden?
Definitely going to be a good game over there. Like you said, Henderson strong all year, can clinch a district title. I mean, I'm not sure off the top of my head when the last time that happened in Henderson. It's probably been a little while after coming out of the district they're doing the past few years. But, Kilgore turning it around at the end. This would be a good battle heading into the playoffs for them. And Carthage Chapel Hill, which I'm sure is on our list to talk about, another big game in that district as far as seeding wise. So good one in Kilgore.
Absolutely, should be a lot of fun. Kilgore's won 8 of the last 11 against Henderson. One of those Henderson's wins came when they won the state championship several years back. But this should be a great game at R.E. St. John Stadium in Kilgore. Some other games: White Oak at Jefferson. White Oak Roughnecks, Brandon. I mean, this is a team. I'm just going to say it. They've shocked me this year. They've shocked me a couple of times. I didn't think they were going to have much of a season. They just lost so much, and then they go out and they win 3 games to start the season. That was a little bit surprised there. Then they have a losing streak. Now they're coming back and they're looking like maybe the team to beat in that district all of a sudden.
Yeah, and earlier you were talking about quarterbacks with big touchdown to low interception ratios. Cordell Smith's in that same category, 17 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he's the straw that stirs the drink. But they also, they got good players all over the field. Jake Pullen on both sides. He was our defensive player of the week this week, and every week he's going to have 16, 17, 18 tackles. So, the Roughnecks, this is a big one. Jefferson, Jefferson's a hard team to figure out. One week they'll dominate somebody, and the next week, they have so many good players, but it's hard to figure out what Jefferson team's going to show up. If it's at Jefferson last game of the season, they could sneak up on White Oak, but this is one White Oak needs to get to gain some momentum going to the playoffs and try to make another deep run.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Jake Poole, and Jake missed 2 games with an injury, and you talk about coming out back strong. This kid, he despite missing those 2 games, he leads the team in tackles with 111, leads them in interceptions, and he's second on the team in receptions with 30. So just a phenomenal athlete.
Yeah, and I forgot that when I was topping up the capsule that he missed a couple games. He's doing all that defensively, but he's got 30 catches for 597 yards and 7 touchdowns offensively.
Yeah,
so.
great numbers. And Jefferson, their quarterback, he was real close. PJ Laster was real close to being our offensive player of the week last week. Put up phenomenal numbers there. We have a question, or are we running out of time?
We did have someone earlier comment about how good Jackie Lloyd is for Harlingen.
There we go. And I agree. What Jessica said was that somebody commenting on Jackie Lloyd and what he's done there. I mean, again, this is a baseball coach that took over when Dennis Alexander left, and all he's done is lead Harleton, I know, to at least back-to-back playoffs in football. Again, he's coached some football, but he's a baseball guy. I mean, almost 500 wins. Just a great job out there. His teams are always ready to play. So, I agree with that comment 100%. All right, a few more games before we do run out of time. Gladewater at center. Just going to kind of run through some of these. Gladewater sitting at 4-0. They've already clinched the first district title first outright district title since 1990. Bears are just. I'm really anxious to see what they do in the playoffs. I mean, they got on a roll last year in the playoffs. Kind of caught everybody surprised. This year they're going to head into the playoffs with that bullseye on them because everybody knows how good they are this year. A couple others, Pleasant Grove at Tatum. Tatum's trying to avoid their first losing season since 2008. That's I think a little bit of shock. You mentioned an up and down Jefferson team. Tatum's kind of been the same way. Hayden, you mentioned Carthage Chapel Hill earlier. Talk a little bit about that one. I mean, this one should be just another great game. Both these teams 3-1, and Carthage has really gotten on a roll.
Yeah, 3 in a row. Defense, we saw Blissett coming along, but now the defense is coming along too. Perfect time in the season. I think we made the comment early on in the year that Coach King, Coach Surratt, and Coach Wood would have teams that you wouldn't want to see at this time of the year. Well, here we are, and Carthage is a prime example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. They're playing. You talking about playing well on defense? They've won 3 in a row. They started the season allowing 36.3 points per game in the first 6 games. They're allowing 7 points in that during this winning streak. So good one there. Gilmer and Raines. Brandon got to see Gilmer last week up close and personal. They're kind of hard to watch because it looks like a track meet out there. What do you think of the Buckeyes?
Yeah, they had eight offensive possessions in the first half that lasted less than a minute, and so every time they got the ball, you didn't get to see them very long. The longest drive they had was 4 plays. It was just throw, touchdown, run, touchdown. I mean, that's just what Gilmer does, and I mean, everybody's like, oh, they're not playing anybody. They're playing. Their district really isn't that bad. Gilmer is really good.
Gilmer's just that good.
And I think people are going to appreciate Gilmer more when they get into the playoffs. And they're still. I mean, they're obviously in the playoffs. They're going to get some tough games, but people are going to realize that Gilmer is really good and has a chance to get that gold ball in December.
Okay. All right, we are running out of time, so we're going to cut it off here. But be sure and pick up the Longview News Journal Saturday morning. Check out etvarsity.com all throughout the night Friday. We'll have your scores updated. And in that Sunday newspaper and online, we will have your playoff pairings, so you will know everything you need to know to get you ready for the playoffs. Appreciate you, and come back and see us next week at 5:30 on Wednesday, and we'll talk some playoffs.